Greetings to all Ebenezers, Gilberts, and Gomers out there. I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. Joining me today is Talmadge Rodger Varnado the third.
It's good to be back, although my eardrums don't necessarily.
You thought you had geared yourself for that greeting, and then all of a sudden, well, in case you weren't all the way awake, if you weren't all the way awake, you're welcome. So Talmadge and I, if you've been following the channel, or even if you haven't, we are fans of the National Basketball Association.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to do something today that's kind of pointless, but just fun. We're going to discuss who our all-time starting lineups would be for his current favorite team and my former favorite team.
Okay.
I tell people oftentimes I'm a certain era Lakers fan. That was my team, at a certain time.
Right.
So I'm going to be choosing my all-time starting five for the Los Angeles Lakers. Talmadge will be going, if you look at his shirt, you'll see, the Houston Rockets. And I've got on Texas shirts. It's almost like we're both supporting the team in a way.
Almost.
Yeah. So here's the criteria, because it would be fun to just say anybody that's ever played for those franchises, let's just go wide open. I self-imposed a little bit on us just to make it a little more challenging. So we're going with traditional positions instead of just saying pick your five and put them where you want. Mm-hmm. Again, that might have been more fun, but I wanted to make this a little bit more challenging. So traditional five positions. And in order to qualify, a player had to spend at least half of their career with the respective franchise.
Fair
that
enough.
way it's like, oh, this guy was on the Lakers. Like a tough one for me, and he doesn't qualify, Will Chamberlain. He spent 4 years with the Lakers. He spent most of his career with the Warriors franchise. So that's a player that I would love to have in my lineup.
Yeah.
He does not qualify. So just to give you an example, they got to spend at least half of the career with their respective teams. And here's something I'm going to spring on Talmadge that we didn't talk about before. You want to choose a coach too?
It'll be easy for me.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier for both of us, but okay. So Talmadge,
yours might be a little more challenging.
True.
I see your list. I know you picked, but you could have gone another way.
I could have gone a couple of
other
directions.
With me, probably not.
I think I know who yours is going to be. So Talmadge, why don't you kick us off? And I'll tell you what, you can start with any position. Whatever position you start with, I'll mirror, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, I'll start with center. That's easy for me.
If you don't know who his all-time Rockets center is.
Well, really everybody's. But I would go with Hakeem Olajuwon. But I will say it was tough in one regard because just like your franchise, the Lakers, the Rockets, I'd probably say have had the second best centers of all time on their team. But behind the Lakers, they've had Hakeem. The tougher one for me to leave out was Moses. Now, he didn't play half his career there.
Yeah.
So that kind of led me. And plus, obviously, Dream won the 2 championships. But you could just have worn their jersey. You could talk Moses Malone. You could talk Dikembe Mutombo, Yao Ming, Ralph Sampson, Dwight Howard.
All those guys.
Elvin Hayes.
Yeah.
So, obviously, with your restrictions, and it made the most sense, I went with Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
But it's hard leaving Moses Malone off of any team.
It is.
If you hadn't put the half their years requirement on this, then I would have got tricky like some folks and tried to put him at power forward. But then I thought about it, it's like, that's kind of, no, we want to keep it pure.
Yeah.
But it was real hard.
Although, I'll give you a little bit of grace if you'd done that, because Hakeem's at least his first season, Ralph Sampson was a center and he did play power forward.
No.
Is that not correct?
No. They did play together.
Okay.
But believe it or not, Ralph was the power forward. Because,
wow, I had that backwards.
Because Dream played better with his back to the basket, number one. And the reason why they got Dream is Ralph Sampson wasn't the most physical player in the world.
That's true.
So you could move him to the wing, and he doesn't have to be as physical at the center position. Now, when they went to their second lineup, yes, Ralph, of course, was the backup center. So Dream would go out, they'd slide Ralph over to center. But when they're both on the court at the same time, it was actually the shorter player at center.
That played center.
Yeah.
Oh, well, never mind then. Because I was thinking to myself, you could kind of take that angle, but I guess you could.
I'm going to take it a little bit later on, but it's not as obtrusive. So we'll see.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right, so we're starting with center. Obviously, I had some pretty good options.
Yes.
One of my name didn't qualify. For my starting center, I am going with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I would have as well.
Yeah, of the guys that qualified, one of the hardest ones not to put was, in fact, Shaquille O'Neal.
Of course.
I had Kareem or Shaquille. I went with Kareem, which was no disrespect. It was a fairly easy choice, but I couldn't have gone wrong with either one of them, really. And if we weren't doing if I hadn't self-imposed the traditional positions, I'm going to tell you right now, Shaquille would be my center and Kareem my power forward. I just would have said, I'm putting them both on the floor. Yeah. Why wouldn't I do that?
My same thing with Moses. Like I said, except for the fact he wasn't there half his career.
Without those stipulations, we could have just really opened this up and gone crazy with it. But because of the stipulations I provided, Kareem is my center. All right, Talmadge, what position we doing next? Or coach. You can throw that in at any point, too.
I'll next go to power forward. Now, honestly, this person did not play half their career with the Rockets. I'll probably have to change. He's already
cheating.
Yeah, so when I first was doing this, I thought the restriction had to have been there at least 5 years. When I reread your production notes yesterday, I was like, it has to be half the career.
Gotcha.
So that being said, I'll remove Elvin begrudgingly. Because keep in mind, the first 5 years of his career were in Houston, and he averaged 25-plus points a game and 16, 17 rebounds.
Elvin Hayes was a beast.
But he played the majority of his career with the Bullets / Wizards.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and change the rule, and I'll put Rudy T at power forward. People don't realize how good Rudy T was as a player.
That's true.
He was a top 5 draft pick, in the first round. He was an All-American at Michigan. He was a multiple-time All-Star with the Rockets, and for his career, he averaged 18 points a game, 17.9.
So he was no joke as a power forward.
And he did play his whole career there.
Okay.
Some people had him at small forward. He played both. But the majority of his career, from what I've seen, because I caught the tail end of his career. But by that time, he was a bench player, and I didn't really see him play. Especially before the Kermit Washington incident, where his career kind of plummeted after that. He had one good year, but when you get punched in the face and almost killed,
half your face is restructured.
But I'm going to say power forward just based on what I know, because he played both. But from what I remember and what I looked up online, the majority of it was power forward.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and say Rudy Tomjanovich instead. So
gotcha.
Quick change, not Elvin.
Elvin Hayes.
Sorry, Elvin, you're still alive.
Yeah.
But we'll go with
Elvin's the more dominant, and I would have gone with him if he qualified.
Yeah.
There'd be hardly anybody else I would consider if he qualified.
Yeah, there's not.
To be the Rockets.
Maybe Otis Thorpe, but I don't know if he played half his career.
But Elvin, I would take all day long over. No offense to Otis Thorpe, but Elvin Hayes is
a Hall of Famer.
One of the all-time great power forwards.
Yeah. But Rudy Tomjanovich.
There we go. So my power forward, this was a tough one for me too, because like I mentioned, Shaquille was hard to leave off, even though he qualified. The guy that I wanted as power forward, when I went to research, he didn't quite play half his career with the Lakers, and that's Pau Gasol. He's the one that in my mind I was like, he's my power forward. He spent a little more time with Memphis, so I was like, So then I got to recoagulate. So I'm going with the guy that I am a big fan of, that's a good player, but he wasn't a dominant stat machine, and that's AC Green.
I'm going to run into the same problem on one of my positions as well.
Good team player, hardly ever missed a game, was a solid rebounder, wasn't going to score a lot, but he played within the flow,
and they won.
And
again, sometimes because of the constraints we put on this, you've got no place else to go. So
right.
We know if we were doing an all-time Laker team, AC Green's not going to be on it with all the legends they've had.
Yeah.
But because of the constraints
I put on,
there's not a lot of other directions you could go.
And believe it or not, the other guy that it kind of came down to with my stipulations was Kurt Rambis.
I could see that too.
Again, not a big stat machine, but good rebounder, played well with Magic and Kareem, ran the fast break, dove after every ball. It kind of came down to, I was like, I could have easily picked him. I went with AC, but Rambis was kind of the next guy that I would have gone with there. All right, Talmadge, what position we doing next?
I'll go small forward, and initially, again, before I took the half their career requirement in, I would have cheated a tad and put Tracy McGrady because he played 2 guard and 3 with the Rockets, probably more 2 than 3, but he played 3 enough to where I could put him on the list. But again, after I reread your notes, he doesn't quite make it because he's not halfway there. So I'm going to have to kind of do what you did with AC Green. I'm going to have to go, believe it or not, Robert Reed.
Okay.
Robert Reed played point guard for the Rockets in a pinch. He played two guard for the Rockets the back half of his career. But when he first came in the league, he was a small forward. And again, much like you with AC, yes, if I'm truly picking an all-time Rocket team without these restrictions, Robert Reed wouldn't be on it.
No way he's over McGrady without the restrictions.
Or several others, even, but Rick Barry played for the Rockets year.
Yeah.
Robert Horry for sure because of the way they won when he was there. Shane Battier was there a good time.
Oh, yeah.
So they've had some good players there. But again, Robert Reed was the one that played half his career.
Yeah.
And he played his last couple of years with Charlotte. In fact, I remember the day he was traded. He was traded for a little-known guard that played with Phoenix called Bernard Thompson. And they told Robert Reed, because he hadn't heard he was traded, and the reporter was talking to him, well, you just got traded to Charlotte. And
he found out from a reporter.
Well, he's like, for who? And they said Bernard Thompson. And he had this big grimace on his face like Bernard Thompson sucks. But he said the right words. He's like, well, he's a good player. But you could tell he didn't believe it.
The look on his face said, that's what my career has come to?
Yeah,
I'm being traded for this guy? That's what value I have now?
A left-handed shooting two guard that was a pretty good defender but could not shoot. And I remember him. And actually, Robert just died a couple of years ago. But, I'll go with Robert Reed for the reasons you gave.
Right. Okay. My small forward was actually a very easy choice. Elgin Baylor.
Yes.
If you've been following the channel, y'all know I'm a huge fan of Elgin Baylor. I did have some other. James Worthy would be a great option I could have gone with. Without the half the career stipulation, LeBron's a pretty easy choice. But of the qualifiers, Elgin, indubitably, just no question, it was Elgin Baylor's my small forward. All right, Talmadge, we just going to keep going down the line. We going shooting guard now?
Yeah, I'll go shooting guard.
Okay.
Now, here's where I had to break the rule because I had no other option. I had zero.
Y'all thought Robert Reed was bad. He couldn't even do it on this one.
Literally. And obviously, for me, it's James Harden. It's hard because, again, that half his career, he's close to it because he played 8 years.
I was going to say, he played 8 years. Is there another team he's played more?
No, there's no other team he's played more.
But because he's still going, he might not end up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a stretch based on your criteria, but there was no other option. He's top 5 in the Rockets in scoring, 3-point shooting, 3-point percentage, assists, even rebounds. I mean, you name it. And plus, that's where the way I can kind of bend your rule even more is that's where he's played the majority of his career because he's played nowhere, for half of his career.
Right.
So based on that, he'd be on nobody's team.
Okay.
And so I'm going to say him because because even the options I thought of, they didn't play half their years with the Rockets. Yeah, I was going to think Maxwell. Granted, nowhere near the numbers, but again, I'm trying to think of your restraint. And they did win 2 titles. Now, granted, the second title in the playoffs, he got kicked off the team. But the regular season, he was there. And there was nobody else. So forgive me.
Who would you, I'm sitting there thinking, who would you have even gone with? And I don't know either.
There's just.
Without looking deeper.
I can't think of
And Harden, that's as close, like you said. He's played 8 years. That's still more than he's played anywhere else. So, not the end of the world to go with him there. And he's such a landslide choice at that position. My shooting guard was a very easy choice, although there's at least one other really good option, but I did go with Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
The other guy that was also tough to leave off is Jerry West, who played some point guard, some shooting guard. He was very tough to leave off because legendary career, spent it all with the Lakers. It's real hard for me to not have Jerry West on my all-time Laker team. But again, I'm not putting him over Kobe. I don't think he was quite.
Well, I'll say this. With the constraints we've talked about through this whole video, I know you mentioned Shaquille and Jabbar, and of course that was hard, but I would have gone with Jabbar as well. This one is even harder for me because you could Jerry West is the logo of the NBA.
Right.
And
he averaged 27 a game for his career and never had a 3-point line.
His name was Mr. Clutch. That's probably of both of our lists the toughest, and we've made cases for other choices being tough. That's how I'm telling you. That's how hard that would have been for me.
Yeah, no, it was.
I would have gone with Kobe too, probably. But I could see myself being talked in with a strong argument into Jerry West and saying, well, let's flip it then.
Yeah,
so
you sold me on Jerry. Yeah, it wouldn't take that much of a push.
And the younger viewers aren't going to buy it because it's going to be Kobe. But
right.
you got to understand, Jerry West was no joke.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
No joke.
Look him up if you don't know. Him and Shaquille were both very difficult to leave off because they both qualified.
Mm-hmm.
West spent his entire career. Mm-hmm. So, extremely difficult. But that also tells you he's also not my point guard because I could have just slid him there.
Right.
He's not on my list.
But we know why you didn't do that.
If y'all don't know who my point guard is yet.
We know why you did that.
All right, so Talmadge, are we going coach or point guard at this point?
Go point guard, and it's going to be Calvin Murphy. And there was really no other choice. Calvin Murphy's Hall of Famer.
Hello, Kenny Smith.
Not half his career. Well, maybe he might have. It might have. But keep in mind, he started with Sacramento, went Atlanta. He went to Denver. He went to Orlando. Atlanta was first. It was Sacramento, Atlanta, and Houston. Then I think like a cup of coffee with like Denver, and a cup of coffee with Orlando. And by cup of coffee, I mean it wasn't even a full
season with those two.
So he might have played, but that's close.
Maybe. I'd have to look. Maybe.
But Calvin Murphy's the easy choice because he played his whole career there.
Yeah.
And he's a Hall of Famer.
I don't know that I realized he's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer.
I knew he was a very good player. I don't know that I realized that.
He is a Hall of Famer.
Okay.
His college career, if you have never ever looked up the numbers, was phenomenal. He played at Niagara, and it was him, and he was playing at Niagara at the same time Pistol Pete was playing at LSU.
Oh, wow.
And there was a heavy argument of who was the college player of the year.
No kidding.
That tells you how good Calvin was because...
If you're in that discussion against Maravich, then yeah.
Well, they both averaged over 30 points in college for the season. And
again, in an era with no three-point line.
That was the next thing I was going to say. I think Calvin only averaged like 17, 18 points per score. I haven't looked it up, but that'd be my guess.
17.9, I think.
Yeah, something like that. But what I would tell you is...
What could he have done?
If they would have had the three-pointer for the majority of his career when he was in his prime, I guarantee he's at 21, 22%.
Oh.
He wasn't quite Steph as far as shooting goes, but range-wise he was. He could hit half-court shots. It's just back then they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a quick story.
He would have averaged maybe 24, 25. I don't know.
Possibly. He was cat quick, great ball handler, great shooter. He even played some two-guard, but keep in mind, he's 5'9".
I was about to say, he couldn't play too much.
He's 5'9", playing two-guard because he can shoot the ball.
He had the shooting mentality and skills. So,
and I'll give you a quick story about him, too. When I went to the University of Houston my freshman year, I stayed in an apartment off campus, and it had a basketball goal in the courtyard. And this limousine pulls up one day, and it's Calvin Murphy. He just gets out, starts shooting, has his limo driver wait. In fact, then I started shooting.
And you recognized him on sight. You're like, this is Calvin Murphy.
Well, plus it was in Houston. I mean,
yeah.
He's a Houston guy. But it got to the point where he didn't even shoot. I would shoot. He was my rebounder. And he would just kick it back out to, and I'd shoot. And we did that for like 30 minutes to an hour. And he
said, you and him?
Just me and his driver was in the
Oh, my gosh. I almost can't believe I've never heard this before.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't tell you. And it's so funny because when we were done, he goes, maybe I'll see you around sometime. And so they drive off. And so like a week later, this was 30 years ago. I can't remember. But a few days later, I'm back out shooting again. And one of the neighbors in the apartment complex walks up to me and he goes, hey, you weren't home the other day, but I knocked on your door. I was like, well, why? He goes, because Calvin Murphy was here, and he said he wanted to shoot with you again. So that's
pretty awesome.
So
especially for anybody, but being a lifelong Rockets fan, that's really awesome.
Yeah, and believe that Calvin could shoot it. So that was an easy choice for me.
Okay. Equivalently easy was the choice for who I could put as my point guard.
And for everybody else also.
Yeah. Irvin, Magic Johnson. I don't know that anybody... The only case you could make is Jerry West if you wanted to put him there. This was easy, and if you don't know, he's my all-time favorite player. Right. So, indubitably, just no question that he was going to be my point guard. So, yes, if I could take this lineup on the floor, Magic and Kobe at guards... Elgin Baylor, AC Green, Kareem, I'd be pretty confident going up against almost anybody. I'm not saying this is the best lineup ever, but I'd feel pretty good.
I can't look. Maybe you could say Boston, because they've had a ton of greats.
If you did an all-time team for them with the same restrictions,
believe it or not, maybe you could put Philly, because if you think back,
they've had some.
But there's not
Barkley, Malone.
beyond that. And like I say, if you remove some of those restrictions, I think my Rockets would be fairly favorable. I still would go. Yeah. It'd be foolish not to go Lakers, but I'm just saying.
If you remove all my stipulations, I'd have Shaquille and Kareem, and then
I'd have Hakeem and Moses.
Yeah, you'd have Hakeem and Moses. Man, I might have Elgin off the bench. I might have to start LeBron, Kobe, and Magic. But then I've got Elgin, Baylor, Jerry West, and James Worthy, and Gasol coming off the bench.
And I've already told you McGrady would be my small forward.
Man, I mean, see, this could
go with James Harden.
That's all more exciting if we had gone that route. We just kind of, off the top of our domes, told you who some of our lineups would be without the restrictions. That would be a game I'd really love to see.
Yeah.
Do we need to say who our coaches are? I mean, yours is...
Well, you do, because you could go two ways. Mine's is easy. Obviously, Rudy Tomjanovich.
So he's coaching himself playing power forward
exactly.
in this scenario.
I mean, I'll give some honorable mentions. And the Rockets have actually had a lot of good coaches. I was thinking about this yesterday. Rudy was always going to be the choice because there's no other.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've had Del Harris, who was a heck of a coach. They've had Rick Adelman. They've had Jeff Van Gundy.
D'Antoni.
They've had D'Antoni. Yeah. They've had Kevin McHale, who had a good run with him.
I forgot the Kevin McHale was coach for a while.
And Ime might turn out to be better than all of them by the time it's said and done.
Maybe.
Because Udoka, with that roster they have now, give them a little experience. They're going to be tough to deal with. I mean, they're already the second seed in the West, and they're probably not going to beat Golden State. So we'll see. I hope they do. But
you wouldn't mind seeing
I
that,
wouldn't
right?
mind it. But, yeah, so easily Rudy, but there are nice honorable mentions. And I don't think people remember Adelman with the Rockets.
I do, but a lot of people probably don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they've had some good coaches. But, yeah, yours comes down to two. Who'd you pick?
Yeah, it was either going to be Pat Riley or Phil Jackson. I went with the guy that does have slightly more championships, so it is Phil Jackson. But you couldn't go wrong. If I'm thinking of a guy to really coach these guys, man, I could have easily said Pat Riley.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those where it's like you can't go wrong.
And I will tell you, gun to my head, I probably would have gone with Pat. I probably would have gone with Pat.
For what specific reasons?
Probably because, and a lot of this is emotion too. It's not. This is not always fact. But to your point, when you said that used to be your favorite team,
yeah,
I know the Lakers won a ton of titles before Pat got there. I'm not trying to imply they didn't, but for my generation, to me, he's the one that put when I think Lakers, Showtime Lakers, I'm thinking Magic. I'm thinking Pat Riley.
Yeah,
it's his personality. It's his imprint. And I can't get past that. And then I'm cheating a little bit, too, because I'm looking at what he's done beyond being with the Lakers. I know technically I'm not supposed to. When I look at the totality of his career, what he did with the Knicks, getting them to the finals. They didn't win it, but he got them there.
Yeah.
Miami, getting them to the finals. And then as a front office staff person, let's face it, Miami's been to 9 Eastern Conference finals in the last 20 years. There's been to 9 of them. He's a big reason.
That's not bad. Yeah.
There is a culture there that he set. And so if I look at the totality, when you look at Phil, when he went to New York, garbage.
Yeah, the success is not there.
And also, I'll say this, not that Pat had bad teams, but Phil Jackson actually said he's not going to a team that's not ready to win. So I've always kind of thought of that and you can't take away from what he's done. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you stack my roster.
My time
and I'm like, okay. But so I probably would have gone with Pat. In fact, I know I would have. But obviously, the reasons why you went Phil, I can't argue.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't argue much against those reasons for going Pat Riley because it is close and, like you said, the overall impact of what he's done is really not something to dispute. So. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today.
I want to cheat real quick, though.
Oh, Talmadge is going to cheat again real quick.
Don't say again. That reminds me I did it before. Real quickly, though, if you had to pick a 6th man, any position, just one player to come off the bench, would you go with Jerry West? That's my guess.
Jerry West. Yeah. What about you?
I would probably break the rule and go with Moses.
It's tough not to. In that case, I might have to say LeBron. But no, Jerry West, if I'm going by my stipulations, he would be because I could play him a couple of different places and have an impact. But I hope y'all enjoyed this as much as we did. If you did like it, please show that by clicking the like button. If you've not already done so, please do subscribe to the channel. It'll help enable me to continue to bring you this type of content, as well as many other types. Also, let us know in the comments. Do you think it was completely ridiculous to even put these stipulations? Because it would have been more fun, wide open. Who do you disagree with? Do you think I was crazy for putting Kareem instead of Shaquille? Do you think Jerry West should have started over Magic and Kobe? Do you not know who Robert Reed is? Tell us what you would have done for your all-time teams, or tell us your favorite team and who your all-time starting five for that team would be. Love to hear that as well. But thank you all so much for stopping by. For Talmadge Rodger Varnado the third, I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you'll have a great week, and I hope I see you again real soon. Now, Tom Jonovich.